Believe it or not, I'm not a risk taker, and so I try to minimize risk, and I look upon launch as one of the riskier parts of space flight. Maybe in the future you'll be able to beam me up there, beam me up there, Scotty, and I would accept that.
The count goes down. You hear T-minus 31 seconds. The onboard computers kick on. You start to get a rush.
The last few seconds, the launch count, there's a lot of dynamic things occurring on the shuttle. Things are powering up, pumps, engines.
You hear the engines kick on. You can see the large steam cloud rise, and then you hold your breath for a few seconds, praying that those solid rocket motors were going to go.
And that 6 seconds seemed to last for an eternity because the vibration was so high, you could feel the shuttle just straining against the launch pad. You think it's going to shake itself apart, and let's hurry up and light solid rocket motors. Come on, let's go. And then bang, it's zero when the solids light.
When those kick on, you're going to go somewhere. The shuttle will not stay at the pad.
What powers the thing is the absolute feeling and the love that the people have here at the center, from the people that work with a wrench to the people that work with a paper, the people that really feel like they're almost physically pushing it off the pad, and their hearts go with it every time. It's as if it's an absolute member of their family, if not a part of their being.
Launch is very fast, it is very violent, it is very noisy. It's basically vibrations and noise. I'm scared of launches. I'm scared to death of launches. I really don't like doing them, but I accept them, and I accept that risk. Space is my calling.
The vibration was so tremendous inside the cockpit that those gauges kind of blurred. It was like, well, it's a good thing I've trained so long to study these gauges, so I can't read them now.
In the space of about 1 minute and 45 seconds, we're traveling faster than the fastest rifle bullet. We're above Mach 3.
What will we do if we lose an engine at this point? Will we return to Kennedy, or will we continue to Africa? Or will we go to Spain? Or, will we have to dump fuel from our orbital maneuvering engines if we lose an engine at this point, or not dump fuel? And what orbit will we go to? And, so there's all these things that you have to be staying ahead of the vehicle on, thinking if the next malfunction occurs, what do I do?
After 2 minutes and 12 seconds, you're off the solids and you're onto the main engines. That's a smooth ride.
It is a bit of a relief to know that they're gone. And you figure that the main engines have been working just fine for 2 minutes. No reason they shouldn't for another 6. So you're feeling pretty good at that point.
It takes approximately 8.5 minutes of powered flight from liftoff at the pad until you're going 17,500 miles an hour. When you're on board, that's a very exciting ride. It goes by very quickly. When you're sitting in a management position, that is the longest 8.5 minutes in the world.
I said, Ellen, I can actually see the sky turning black. Ellen said, great, and Don said, what are the engines doing? And I came back in and I looked and I said, Don, the engines are great. Ellen, it's really black now, because I was so excited.
MECO is a NASA acronym for main engine cutoff. MECO, main engine cutoff. So you always hear MECO, and there's great smiles that go up in MECO, particularly if it's a safe MECO.
Closing my eyes just as the engine shut down, I was, of course, in free fall. It's rather abrupt from having a 3G push in which you weigh 3 times. I weigh roughly 460 pounds or so, to 0G into free fall. Just a magical experience.
It's euphoria on board. It's euphoric. There's just the whole crew who lets up a cheer. I don't know, I'm not sure if it's an unspoken thought in everybody's mind or just sheer joy of being there, but it's certainly a little bit of both, you know. We're alive and we're in orbit. What could be better?
It's an archetypal dream of human flight. You know, we as humans, for as long as we've been humans, have thought about doing that.
An insurance salesman called me up. I surprised him. I said, yes, I am interested in life insurance, what he called. And he said, oh, great. I could tell it's probably the 1 in 100 that he'd got that day. And I said, how old are you? And do you smoke? No. Good physical condition? Yes. And great. And what's your occupation? I said, well, I'm an astronaut. Dead silence on the phone. Without a doubt, the hardest part is what I do, what I enjoy doing. Is it worth the risk to my family? Because I love my family dearly, and I have 3 small daughters, a 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 6-month-old now. And when you kiss them goodbye 7 days prior to your scheduled launch, as you go into quarantine, because you're not allowed to see your children in quarantine, that's a difficult night. Very difficult.
I asked Danny a couple of weeks before flight, are you excited about your daddy going up in space? And she said, no. And I said, well, why not? She says, it might blow up. So Challenger is still there in the forefront, I think.
That's what I think of every time it goes up. And the boosted separation really bothers me. And my children, laugh at me when we have a joke afterwards, but I jump every time.
Seeing that shuttle going up is amazing to me because you're watching all this power just push this tremendous shuttle into the air, and it starts to hover at first, and it seems like that's the only thing you care about in the world right now.
It's an incredibly dangerous business. You're trying to lose so much energy in such a short period of time. You're using such sophisticated techniques and procedures and equipment. We're going to lose people. We're going to lose more people. I think it's only through the dedication of all the fine folks who work in this business that we haven't lost more already.
Personally, on that day, I was sitting next to the person who had the responsibility for launch director, and we saw the Challenger destruct in front of us, and it's a moment that those on the team and those that saw it, of course, will never forget.
I was the flow director for Columbia at that period, and we had just landed out in California, and on the way back, I had stopped off in Denver to see my brother. So I was flying back that morning, and I hung around my brother's apartment watching the count, and they had a problem with a hatch, and they were talking about the problems with ice, and the time was running. I finally jumped in a cab and had to get to the airport, and I get to the airport, and of course in an airport everything's in. So I called my brother real quick and I said, how's it going? And he said, you have a problem. And I said, what do you mean? He said, a big problem.
The last time I saw Krista McAuliffe, she was very nervous about teaching the lesson from space. I mean, she was going to be live with hundreds of schools. And she turned to me and said, I'm really nervous about all this video stuff. And I was young and feeling very cocky that day. And I said, don't worry. We're going to take real good care of you. You don't have to worry about a thing. And I've thought about that an awful lot.
I was at my boss's office. We gravitate to some place where there's a television when it finally comes down to the last few minutes of the count. And we were sitting there watching many secretaries and other people in the room at the same time. And when the spacecraft disappeared in the explosion, of course, no one knew for sure what happened. But they were saying, oh, the SRBs have separated, you know. And at that moment, you could see a couple of SRBs wandering off on their own. And my boss and I looked at each other, you know, and there was no words spoken. I mean, we just knew that we were in deep trouble, that crew was gone.
We don't normally keep the video on in the control room when we're flying because the video can deceive you. The truth is in the telemetry. But when all the data went away and we heard the reports from the site of an explosion, everybody turned their cameras on and almost turned on the video. And almost everybody that I've talked to said, I kept looking in that cloud for an orbiter to fly out because we were thinking that we'd find a way to bring them back if an orbiter would fly out of the cloud. And of course, it didn't happen that day.
I watched the ascent. I saw the fireball. I screamed, please return to the launch site. I ran to the TV set, I turned the TV set on, and waited with the rest of the country as they played that fireball over and over again.
I knew those people, and I recall the last time at which I saw every one of them. When did I look in their eyes? What were the last words that were communicated between myself and each one of them? That kind of played through my head the last time that I saw them, what the occasion was and what we spoke of, and I remember the expression on their faces.
The films told us that the crew module came out more or less intact. We didn't get enough detail to determine what kind of intactness there was. For example, if the crew was still conscious or not conscious, able to make radio calls or not. That part we never really did determine. But we did not expect to see the crew module come out as one piece and be able to track it for some distance.
I knew we were dealing with a very vulnerable vehicle, a butterfly, which is riding on a rocket. I knew about those things. I knew it was vulnerable. I knew it was fragile. And I knew the risk was very high on this thing. But I did not expect when the accident occurred that it would be due to negligence.
It could have been prevented. It didn't have to happen. It wasn't one of those days where all the forces of nature ganged up against us. That the system, the people in the system, understood that we had a problem in the design of the O-rings, that a potential could occur for loss of the vehicle due to burn through of the casing. But somehow we were unable to work the system properly to get those answers up so that we could take effective action. And so it was a human failing.
And I'll never forget that moment. Every time I go through the Denver airport, I know.
Every day we go out there and we work, we try to make sure that never happens again.